Alright, this is my Hills Have Eyes ranking. I just got done filming the whack order I watched them in, and I'm going to try to say different things in this. More comparison, probably. And I'm going to go from worst to best, of course. And I'm including all 5 of them, including Mind Ripper, in case you're just not going to watch the whack order I watched these in. Hopefully this video is going to be a little bit shorter than that one. So yeah, the Hills Have Eyes franchise. I have a long history with it. If you want to know the history with it, you'd have to watch the whack order I watched these in. So if you want to hear me talk more about those movies after this, there's that video too, and I will be ranking the kills. But right now, we're talking about the Hills Have Eyes, and I think that I'm just gonna go right ahead and say that I don't think any of these movies are downright unwatchable. I would say that if you're gonna marathon these movies, I wouldn't skip any of them unless you have a bad history with sexual assault, which, you know, obviously, trigger warning. The trigger warning for that is just that the title says Hills Have Eyes in movie ranking. That's the trigger warning for that. Because you should know that's in this, but obviously, don't watch the newest movie if that's a problem for you. But, well, you're probably not going to watch any of these, honestly, if that's a problem for you. But if that is, watch Mind Ripper. And I think part 2. Speaking of part 2, last place, number 5, is The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, 1984. Now, when I did rewatch this, I did fast forward through all of the flashbacks. I caught the end of them just because I was on the TV, so I had to stop while the flashback was still in frame to catch the whole parts that weren't flashbacks. So I definitely I'm giving it more credit because I'm not watching that part, but so that makes it pretty short. But I would say that this movie does the most things that piss me off, but the things that make me laugh the most. I laughed for 7 minutes at the fucking dog flashback. Literally, that was so fucking funny. The idea that Bobby and Ruby would be together is asinine. I get Ruby's death is just really disrespectful. Bringing back Pluto was a bad retcon, but I do like the actor, so seeing him in this playing the same character was fun, but it just doesn't make sense. I'm just like, alright, whatever, the dog missed the jugular. Sure. Even though that death was way cooler than his death in this movie. I digress with that. The one thing I was really hoping for in this movie, because this is the 4th time I watched it, I think. Maybe the 5th. I say maybe the 5th because I drank a lot in high school, and the 2nd and 3rd time I watched it was for sure in that time frame. So I didn't remember it that well, so the whole time I was just thinking, if you kill Beast. It's if you fucking kill Beast. And there's a scene where there's a dead dog hanging upside down, and the blind chick just misses it. Cass, the blind chick, is a great final girl. Come on. She's blind and a final girl? That's a whole other level of badass. Coffee in the mustache. Anyway. Love that. I thought this new Reaper mutant was probably one of the weakest baddies of the franchise. I didn't like him. I hate the idea that he's supposed to be the older brother of Jupiter. Because Jupiter's supposed to be the second child, and the first child was a normal girl that he killed in the fire. And that fire also took his dad's wife. And even if that isn't true, he wrecked her coming out, so there's no fucking way they have another one just like that. He would have first of all, he would have mentioned it. Second of all, it just completely contradicts what happened in the first movie. The idea that Bobby and Ruby would get together makes no sense when they have no fucking scenes together in the first movie, and the only thing they have to bond over is the trauma of this experience. And I don't think that's enough foundation for them to stay together for that long, first of all. But also, maybe it's just the only people that they can talk to about it. But still, he has such traumatic PTSD from this that it doesn't make sense to me that he just stay with this woman. I don't know. he must really be thankful that his niece got to live. Cause, yeah, props for that, Ruby. But chick was speaking broken English and eating dog, and like human. So, I'm not. Like, you don't stick your dick in that. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my opinion, I guess. So, yeah, part two, weakest movie. I say that the throat slit was top notch. The fucking spear to the chest while he's riding the bike, top notch. I don't want to go too much more into the kills just because, like, obviously I'm gonna rank them at some point. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe another day. I have them all written down, but I haven't ranked them yet, so I have to do that before I film that. So, and I'm pretty tired, but yeah, I do enjoy that. The guy that plays Nick in Friday the 13th 7 is in this, and he plays Roy, another guy that lives through the movie, even though for a lot of the movie he's out of commission with getting knocked out, which, it isn't really this guy's MO to leave someone alive, but whatever. I will say having less mutants does weaken this movie, and the fact that one of them was supposed to already be dead and only is in this movie, A, for a dog flashback, which makes it totally worth it, but B, just so that someone can have a conversation with Ruby about this retcon of Reaper being a thing, which they could have easily done without pissing me off if they'd have just said Reaper was another one of Jupiter's kids. He's the brother of Mars and Pluto and Mercury. He could be called Uranus. I said that joke in the other video too, but I don't care. But yeah, no, like, if they'd have just had him be another one of those kids who just lives in their own hut because he's so much more dangerous or something. I don't know. They could have done something that made more sense. Come on. I understand that this movie was not supposed to be good, or well, it was supposed to be funny, and it was supposed to do for us what Friday the 13th did for us, but it wasn't supposed to be a lot to like chew on thematically like the original was, or like it wasn't supposed to be a big thing. It was a cash grab, literally. Like, he needed to pay his bills. And, it's fun. It's enjoyable. Cheesy 80s slasher you throw on. The score is very derivative of Friday the 13th. And if you're going from that to that from the score of the original is just jarring. But, Alright, I'm going to move on. In fourth place, we have The Hills Have Eyes 2 from 2007. Now, The Hills Have Eyes 2 from 2007 is a mixed bag for me. I enjoy the critique of the military's motives and what they do and how they do things, because it needs critiqued, and we need it shoved in some people's faces. Because some people just blindly, like, well, whatever they're doing must be the right thing. I hate that. And I love what this movie does with that. However, while like sexual assault is obviously in the original movie and it's in the remake, and it's a crucial point in the movie because it's like it's showing that like even if like you survive, you're never gonna be the same after this. And that's not the only thing it's doing in that movie. It's disturbing, but that's one scene, and if it's too much, you can fast forward through that scene. In this movie, it's the whole fucking storyline. It's all over the place, and it's the most graphic one yet, and I was uncomfortable watching it. Like, I was uncomfortable watching the other ones too, but at least they were over quickly. I mean, this one wasn't that much time either, but it was the most intense and graphic, and it was unnecessary. Like, the whole idea that... it was just unnecessary. I mean, I like the plot point that someone is kidnapped and the other people have that, I guess the closest word I can think of would be respectable, but that's not what I mean. I keep finding myself, thinking of an idea of a word that probably has a word for it, but not an English one. But, like, a moral respectability for them going back for her. Whereas with Doug going for his baby is a whole other thing. It's like obvious. It's not even, you don't even question it. That's like what you do. The only reason he doesn't go immediately is because he knows that if he does, he can't protect the Bobby and Brenda. And that goes, I'm pretty sure that goes for the original too, but in the remake I really got a sense of that because I can kind of see their thought processes in that movie, which is fun. Like, I love the acting in that movie. But yeah, no, I do enjoy the characters for the most part. I think that the acting in this movie is also good. I think it's really gruesome. I think the idea that they have a guy who's, he has a bunch of little cuts all over him, and he's in a fucking outhouse covered in shit, and he comes out and fucking just dies. It's, ugh. Like, he was in there for so long. Why didn't he crawl out earlier? Wait, I know why I didn't crawl out earlier. It's like Tremors. Like, the hill people will just wait you out. That he waited for someone to show up to come out. I don't know. But either way, like, that's gotta be one of those gruesome kills in a fucking movie. Like, literally, little cuts all over you and then put in an outhouse for God knows how long until you die from being septic. Like, if there's any doctors out there that, like, are hardcore slasher fans, which I don't know, that's probably not a very big middle of the circle chart thing, but like, let me know if that's the worst one you can think of. I mean, obviously Saw is gonna top a lot of them, but just yeah. And I do enjoy the way this group functions because they're military, but they're trainees. They haven't even seen real combat. They're in the middle of a training session at the beginning of the movie, and it shows that these guys are rookies. They have one person on their team that is capable, and he gets killed pretty soon. And so they all have to like band together as this group. But unlike the characters in the other movies, uh, they're like, these people have military weapons and like, well, not like full on armor, but like bulletproof vests and helmets and shit, and like training. And you can really see that training coming through in the end, where like fucking Napoleon, like underrated character probably, just takes out a fucking knife, immediately slits the Achilles tendon, and then stabs him right in the fucking neck. I don't know if he got right in the jugular, but it was close. I would assume the reason that it wasn't right on there is because you shouldn't do that with even a prop knife. So, I understand that, like with the speed he was going. But yeah, no, I love this movie, even though there's parts of it that disgust me, and that kind of makes it right here. I enjoy that they also have another mutant. I think his name is Hansel, and which I didn't know. I always thought his name was Renouille. But no, I like that idea of that character because he's like a Ruby because they killed Ruby in the last movie. I think just to put a pin in, like, if we do another one, we're not gonna put Bobby and Ruby together, even though we hinted at way more in this movie than we did in that movie. Not gonna happen. She's dead. Love that, but this isn't that movie. Yeah, I don't know. The idea that they have another character like that, that's part of the family, but has some morality and wants to help them out. That was fun. I like that Crank, obviously, he starts out hating Napoleon, and then by the end of it, like, he hugs him. It's like the best written character arc, but it is a character arc, so I have to respect that. And I do enjoy, like, that group, like, all for one and one for all feeling of it all. Because, like, second to obviously an actual family, something like this would be that second thing that, like, the people that you fight to death with. Or not like fight to death with, but like the people on your side that you're fighting to death with. Not like a Batman and Joker thing, but uh no, I enjoy that in this movie. And some of the deaths, even though they're not the best as far as like CGI blood, they're written very well. I mean, a guy gets his leg grabbed in a fucking like little hole in rocks, and one of his legs, he's like wishboned, and one of his legs snaps over his head, and there's just blood all over the crotch, and then he's sucked through the fucking He's sucked through the hole. It's great. I like this franchise. It's not my top. It's It's not one of my top franchises, but maybe it will be after a while because I do enjoy these movies. I just give it like a few like examples of just some great kills, like I did in the last movie, but there's just too many. I already talked about one gruesome kill. I'm gonna move on to The Hills Have Eyes. The original is in third place. I know, but hear me out. Being third place isn't a knock on this movie, it's a testament to the movies above it. And you'll find me saying that in probably a few rankings that I do. I'm sure I have in other ranking videos. I'm pretty sure I only have a couple other ranking videos. Oh, and ranking, I watched Scream 5 3 times, ranked the ghost faces, and then I watched all the movies, all the TV show, and then the fifth movie a fourth time. And now that Ghostface ranking I made a few weeks ago is not accurate. It's not even close to accurate, actually. So I will redo that one and delete that video. And if you're on to why I think the original lands right in the middle of the ranking. I do enjoy it. I love what it says about the classes, because you have the middle class versus the lower class in a fight to the death, like family versus family war thing. It's very primitive. It takes you to a fucking primitive state where you're like, if that was my baby, I wouldn't leave any of them alive. Except Ruby, because she saved the baby. And I'm like, you get a pass. But I'm going back and I'm killing the mama. I don't give a fuck. I'm killing Jupiter. I'm killing them all. And I'm going to make sure that, like, I'm going to ask Ruby, did I get them all? There's not some other uncle you have that isn't introduced yet? like, I would flip the fuck out. Like, I don't know if I would have the capability to do what these characters do in this situation. Because I would just be fucked up from the first thing that happens. Like, because I think that what I would do is I would either freeze up and break down, or I would literally come at these people. Like, that scene where they're running with the baby and they show up. I would chase them before I went inside. And I'd probably die, but I'm gonna tell you right now, there'd be some fucking neck in my teeth, or some fucking eye goo on my fingers, because you fucked up. You take one of mine, I take all of yours. And that is what I love about these movies. These movies meaning 1 and 2, or not 1 and 2, but 1 in the remake. Like, the idea of revenge, like avenging someone that you really care about, it just appeals. But also the class, what it says about class, the whole, like, the portrayal of everything, the heinousness of it, like, I think it does everything that it's trying to do as well as they could at the time. Some complaints, it's just not as gruesome as the remake. The family relationship's just not as interesting as Mind Ripper, and those are pretty much the main things. Like, also I just like the creative ideas in Mind Ripper more, and I think that as far as comparing the original to the remake, like I've said before, the remake just does it better. You don't hate the original, obviously, but it is an objectively worse version of a movie I grew up with, which I'm sure is the exact opposite of your opinion. And I'm glad to hear your ranking of these movies down below, and I fully expect you to have this movie higher. And I would love to have that conversation, because I want to know which part 2 people don't like more. Because that was the only decision in this that was, like, I had to really think about. And I think it came down to Ruby's death and Pluto's retcon and the critique of the military. As far as, like, with this movie, like, I will say it is a classic. I love this movie. I just think that it's one-upped in the later. So to get into my top, watched this one first. I might have it higher, which is another good reason to watch the whack order I watched these movies in, because you'd probably be surprised where this lands. Brings us to our top two 90s and zeros. I love that every decade up until like from the 70s to the zeros has a Hills Have Eyes movie. You know, it's a little bummed that Tens doesn't, but their track record wasn't the best, to be honest, in my opinion. I enjoy that they had two in the zeros, but I would have preferred two from the 80s. I'm just rambling here to prolong the inevitable, where I just tell you that Mind Ripper's number two. Mind Ripper, the movie that most people forget, is, in my opinion, better than the first two movies. And obviously, the newest movie. It's just good. Like, Giovanni Ribisi, sorry if I didn't get that right, and Lance Henriksen carry that fucking movie. Villain Thor, phenomenal. Like, the effects work on like the fucking, like, he has like a yonic thing under his tongue that has a very phallic thing that comes out and brain sticks itself in your brain and scrambles that shit up and sucks it in. What the fuck? The whole idea of the movie that like it's like the newest movie where it's a military base and they're doing experiments which aren't exactly like from the remake timeline, but they're, I don't know, I'm trying to just decide if it's darker or not, probably. But basically, it's a virus that has been, uh, I think, exploited or tampered with to basically make a superhuman that would live forever because they're just constantly regenerating any tissue that they damage. There's a guy trying to commit suicide, and he hits a fucking. He's just fucked. We don't really see it, but we just, the first thing we see is him on the fucking ground. And then the second time I was watching this movie, I was like, "Oh, that was our first body." I forgot that that was the guy that, obviously, I caught on pretty quick, but they make him superhuman, and he slowly like loses his ears and his hair, and like he does this crawl thing that they speed up perfectly to make it really creepy. This movie's actually written by Wes Craven's son, and I think that like that kind of might be why I love so much of the father son dynamic. I don't know. I mean, he obviously, the writer, would probably be why that happened, but I don't know, that kind of also helped. But just those actors are so good. And there's a running theme of like be a man, and I like that. Because that is kind of a running theme of these movies, is to like take your fucking stance and like be a man, like, you know, you fucking avenge your family, survive for one, rescue your family. The whole plot line to get the teenagers there makes sense to me, because as far as he knows, the last phone call he got was that the patient didn't react well to the serum that they only used on animals so far, and he's gonna die. And then he's like, first he's like, "That's not on me," and then he remembers that he saved his life, and then he remembers that feeling, and then he's like, "Oh, he's gonna die anyway," and he's like, "God damn it!" So he has to go out there, even though he already planned a camping trip with his kids, because his son's distant from him, and his daughter really wants to go, and she's bringing in her boyfriend, which is just a Friday the 13th character. Well, the scientists are getting picked off by this super fucking human that they've created in this lab that's like locked down like in Day of the Dead. I don't know, I fucking love this movie. Like, I don't know, sue me. Don't really sue me. But uh yeah, no, Mind Ripper, great movie. I'm surprised that there wasn't another one like this, but that might make the franchise more confusing if there's a Mind Ripper 2, so I'm kind of glad there isn't. But yeah, no. I love it. And I like that I think the second remake did take a little from it. As far as like the military setting, could be a coincidence, but I don't know. Me to my number one, which is the remake, which, I knew that one of these top two was going to be my number one going into this, because the remake was the first one I watched. I mean, spoiler for the other video, which is the Whack Order, but whatever. And Mind Ripper, another spoiler for the Whack Order, was the last one I watched. But when I first watched it, it was my favorite. Now, having seen them all again, obviously it's not, but that's because the remake is just so well made. From the first scene, you just established that this is the highest budget of any of these fucking movies. And they know what they're doing. The cinematography is great. The acting is just the best, apart from just the actors I mentioned in the last movie. The fucking... It's just so fucking good. God. The gore is phenomenal. The emotions, the feeling of it all, like the stakes of it all. I mean, yes, it's the same stakes as the original, but with these characters I relate to more. They're more believable. They're more likable. There's more of an arc with them, because, like, no offense to the actors from the original film, but they're not as good as at portraying the brutal emotions of it all, other than Brenda's actress. She did a good job of being traumatized. However, it did get annoying, but I'm not, like, in any way saying that that's a negative or that I don't like her because of it, because it just, like, obviously she's gonna be freaking out. The only time it bugged me was when she was screaming for Bobby not to leave her when they were, like this far apart, and he's just walking to the trailer that's like a few feet from them. I don't know, but yeah, that's the only thing that I didn't like about that. But in this movie, the actor playing Bobby does, like, a phenomenal job. The actor playing Doug does a phenomenal. Every single actor in this movie does a phenomenal job. In the original, every actor does a good job, but only, like a lot of them do a phenomenal job, but, like, I think the Bobby actor is a little bit lower, because he's very... You can tell that when the dad's dead, that scene, that he's not really able to get there. And, it's nothing against that, because, like, obviously this is probably a first-time actor. He's probably not done a lot of these gigs, and, I sucked for a long time. But, hell, I might not even be good now. I don't know. But, yeah, this remake just has so much going for it. Like, this is the epitome of what a great 2000s remake is. It's just, like, what the original does with the whole, like, filming style of it and the realism of it. This movie brings the realism through the emotions of it all and the realistic gore. Because, like, Bob's death in the fire, I was expecting to not be as good as the original, just because I haven't seen these movies since I was, like, a teenager. That's part of why I wanted to watch them all in one sitting, other than I just hadn't done that before. And, like, the fucking, like, he's fucked up, and you can see its eyes white out, like, they get boiled inside. And, like, it reminds me of Final Destination when Todd has the blood. Like, it's just so fucking brutal, and every acting is just better. Like, Doug finding his dead wife, I think, is done equally good in both movies. I think that quite a few things are done equally good in both movies. I think the main thing that really drives this one more forward, other than just the acting and the cinematography, and, like, the visceralness of it. Not to say the original wasn't visceral, but it's just, like, there's way more mutant deaths, and that's what I want. Like, I want the heroes to become badass and kill some of these fucking mutants. Like, fucking go full on Henry Rollins Wrong Turn 2 on his ass. Yeah. And this movie delivers. Like, Doug, he starts out, like they say, he's a Democrat, he doesn't fuck with guns, and I don't really see that big of a difference between them. I mean, they started as the same party, wiped out the other party, and then eventually split up, so it's like, I voted for Krotos. Whatever. So I don't really think of it that much, but the idea is that he is a pacifist, like Napoleon in the one after this. Only a better character in this movie, obviously, Doug. Uh, I think that they do a good job of finding someone that matches that type of character, even though that type of character from the 70s wouldn't be here now with that mustache and shit. And having him be a phone developer, it kind of fits. And, like, he's just so much more badass, and you can see, like, his. He's so raw with, like, his reactions to everything. And then, like, when he realizes the baby's gone, you can see them, like, pace, or, like, and he's thinking, and, like, he's, like, he knows that if he goes after the baby right now, that Bobby and Brenda could be attacked again and probably killed. And now he knows that it's his responsibility to keep all three of them alive. And so he's just like, fuck! I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was a heavy moment. And just the whole, like, how this brings them closer together. And plus, just there's a lot of really fun interactions between the family members. There's some fun interactions between them in the original, but in this one it's more relatable because, like, obviously this is a family from the decade I grew up in, so you have that. I mean, in this movie, the baby's in a fucking car seat when they crash. Thank God. I mean, I know the baby wasn't in the car seat when the stunt guy ran into it, so. But, fuck. Bob saying, watch the baby before he crashes. When I didn't, and I know he doesn't do that in the original, even though in that movie, the baby's not in a fucking carriage, or a fucking baby seat. Like, just the updates, and the fact that they actually show the car village, which is just such a great thing from, like, Under That Tarp in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and, like, the junkyard in the remake of that, and, like, the junkyard in Wrong Turn, and, like, the warehouse in Wrong Turn 2. They only mention it in the original movie because they didn't have the budget for that crater. But in this movie they did, and showing that crater was just so awesome. And, like, the way they fix certain things, like having Bobby, when he finds the dog, get knocked the fuck out instead of just scraping his cheek, and having him come back at night instead of at daytime. Like, it does two things. I will say that it does a little nitpicky hindrance where why are they waiting for Big Bob to be set up as the torch when they have Bobby right there and the one guy saw him? Whatever, though, because it helps with why it takes him so long to mention that Beauty's dead, whereas in the original he shows up way sooner after that and waits way longer to bring it up. But in this movie, he's like, he wakes up disoriented, fucking traumatized, and he's immediately brought back, and then he's, like, obviously overrun with being fixed up, and it just doesn't come up again. And then each time he tries to bring it up, it makes sense that it gets cut off. In the original, it just doesn't flow as well with that storyline. It just kind of seems weird that he didn't bring it up. There's just a bunch of, like, things like that. But yeah, the main thing that brings this one home is just the fucking brutality of the way they kill the mutants. Like, I mean, oh, and the guy that just shoots himself in the face, I think his name's Jeb. Put my notes over here. Yeah, that's what it said. And, God. Like, in the original, he explains a lot of shit, but in this movie, they explain it in the intro and with newspaper articles, so they have him just fucking kill himself. And it's just so much more scary because now Bob doesn't know shit about what's going on, except for, like, a few things. And now the mutants are probably pissed, because I don't know if they were even planning on killing him or not. they definitely were in the original because they did. I don't know. This movie's just really good. I could go on and on and on. I love how Ruby sacrifices herself at the end, and I like that they play with her following Bobby around just as a reference to the second movie where they're together, only to say at the end that no, that's never gonna happen because she's dead. While at the same time earning her death in that way of having it be that heroic moment. Because in the original, it just ends with him stabbing the fucker to death. I mean, first of all, the fucking fight scenes are just better in this movie. They just are. I mean, Pluto kicking the shit out of him, chopping off two of his fingers, which in my mind is a wrong turn reference. I don't know. It would make sense to me because just wrong turn is a love note to Hills Have Eyes Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Hills Have Eyes remake having someone get two of their fingers chopped off. It seems like a little wink at like, hey, thanks, because this movie is also a direct love note to that movie. So I don't know. In my mind, that's a connection. I brought it up in the other video too. My ranking of the Hills Have Eyes movies, I know it's not anyone else's ranking. I mean, maybe it is, and if it is, hey, let me know, because that's whack. Like, that's strange. Yeah. Let me know what your ranking of these movies is, and we'll also be doing the ranking of all the kills in this franchise, which will be so much easier than doing the kills in Scream. You have no idea. And as far as all the other ranking of kills that are like that aren't really long, you might as well not watch them. I'm not in them. It's just the kills playing in succession, and they're not in the right order anymore. Like I already told you that the Scream Killers ranking isn't in the right order, and I don't want to redo the kills ranking, so you're just gonna have to trust it's close enough. I don't know what to tell you, but the Hills Have Eyes kills ranking will be a lot more accurate because I just watched them. So look out for that, and like and subscribe and all that bullshit. Click the bell, and I would do personalized because I do all kinds of weird shit. Not weird, but I'll do all kinds of shit on this channel. So if you click the bell without personalizing it, it'll just take you. It'll like Doctor Who, like a comedy sketch every now and again. Probably not for a while, but I have one on there that's pretty funny. So if you don't want that and you just want the horror stuff, you gotta personalize it. Later.